Sarah Parker, a suburban housewife living in a quiet neighborhood in Ohio, had what seemed to be the perfect life. She was married to John Parker, a hardworking man who adored her. Together, they had two children, Emily and Jack. The perfect American family, until it wasn't. An illicit affair with John's younger brother, David Parker, spiraled out of control, ending in cold-blooded murder. This story chronicles how a dangerous love triangle led to Sarah's ultimate betrayal of her family and her chilling decision to kill the man who had once given her everything. Sarah Parker, in her early 30s, was the embodiment of a stay-at-home mom. To her friends and neighbors, she was the woman who had it all: an attentive husband, lovely kids, and a beautiful house in a peaceful Ohio suburb. John Parker, her husband of 10 years, was a man who spent long hours at his job as an accountant to support the family. He trusted Sarah completely, never imagining that his younger brother David would become more than just family. David was different from John in every way. While John was grounded, practical, and introverted, David was a free spirit. He worked odd jobs, bounced from relationship to relationship, and lived life by his own rules. Over time, Sarah found herself drawn to his spontaneity, something John seemed to have lost over the years. What started as innocent conversations during family gatherings quickly escalated into something much darker. In the summer of 2021, while John was working long hours due to the company's merger, Sarah began to feel isolated. David, who had recently moved back to town after a breakup, frequently visited them. His charm and charisma captivated Sarah. The more time they spent together, the more she began to confide in him about her frustrations with John. One fateful evening, when John had to stay overnight at a work conference, Sarah invited David over for dinner. After a few glasses of wine and hours of deep conversation, their flirtations turned physical. It wasn't just lust. Sarah felt a sense of freedom with David that she hadn't felt in years. Their affair began that night, and from then on, every time John was away, David would sneak into the Parker home. The small town of Greenwood, Ohio, where everyone knew everyone, was not a place for secrets. Sarah and David worked hard to keep their relationship hidden, meeting in secret places and lying to their friends and family. But as the affair continued, it became harder to maintain the facade. The risk of getting caught only fueled their passion. Sarah became bolder, and David more possessive. But Sarah's guilt also began to eat away at her. John, oblivious to her betrayal, continued to trust her completely. He noticed Sarah becoming more distant, but he chalked it up to her being stressed from raising the kids. He had no reason to suspect his own brother. However, things took a turn when Emily, their 9-year-old daughter, innocently mentioned to her father that Uncle David was here again when you were away. John shrugged it off at first, but began to feel uneasy. Why was David visiting so often when he wasn't home? What was going on behind his back? By the fall of 2021, Sarah's double life was spiraling out of control. David had grown impatient, pressing her to leave John for him. He believed their love was real, and he wanted a future with her. But Sarah was terrified of what would happen if the affair was exposed. She loved the thrill, the passion, but she wasn't ready to destroy her family. Tensions between the brothers grew. John began to notice how frequently David was around and how distant Sarah had become. One night, when John confronted Sarah about her coldness, she snapped. She blamed him for not being present, for working too much, for not caring about her needs. But the real confrontation came a few days later when John decided to talk to David. What started as a casual conversation quickly escalated into an argument. "I don't know what's going on, but you've been around way too much lately," John said, trying to control his rising anger. David, under pressure and eager to claim Sarah as his own, let his emotions get the better of him. "Maybe you should pay more attention to your wife, John. Maybe she wouldn't need me so much if you were actually around." John's blood ran cold. That single comment was enough to confirm his worst fear. His brother had been sleeping with his wife. The affair might have ended there, with John confronting Sarah and their marriage falling apart. But what happened next was far more sinister. David, desperate to hold on to Sarah, convinced her that John would never forgive them, that the only way they could truly be together was if John were out of the picture, permanently. At first, Sarah was horrified by the suggestion. Murder her husband? The father of her children? It was unthinkable, but David was persuasive, planting seeds of doubt and fear in Sarah's mind. "If he finds out, Sarah, he'll take the kids. He'll ruin you," David whispered one night as they lay in bed together. "But if he's gone, we could be together. No more lies, just us." Sarah wrestled with her conscience for weeks, but as John grew more suspicious, her fear of losing everything consumed her. Finally, in November 2021, she agreed to David's plan. The murder was meticulously planned. David would take care of the details, and Sarah would create an alibi. On the night of November 15th, 2021, John came home from work, unaware that it would be his last night alive. Sarah, pretending nothing was amiss, greeted him with dinner and asked about his day. After the kids went to bed, she suggested they watch a movie together, something they hadn't done in a while. It was all part of her plan to keep him calm, unsuspecting. Meanwhile, David waited in the shadows outside. Once the house was quiet, he slipped inside through the back door, which Sarah had left unlocked. With a kitchen knife in hand, David crept up behind John, who was sitting on the couch. Before John could react, David plunged the knife into his back repeatedly. John died almost instantly, his blood soaking the living room floor. The crime scene was staged to look like a burglary gone wrong. David ransacked the house, knocking over furniture and taking valuables to make it seem like a robbery. Sarah, sticking to their plan, ran to a neighbor's house, screaming for help. She told the police that an intruder had broken in and killed her husband while she was upstairs putting the kids to bed. At first, the police believed her story. There were no immediate signs pointing to her involvement. But as investigators dug deeper, inconsistencies in Sarah's story began to surface. Why hadn't the children heard anything? Why were there no signs of forced entry? The final nail in the coffin came when police found text messages between Sarah and David, messages that revealed the affair and their plotting. Both Sarah and David were arrested within days of the murder. In the trial that followed, Sarah and David's sordid affair and cold-blooded murder plan shocked the quiet town of Greenwood. Sarah, once seen as the perfect wife and mother, was now a symbol of betrayal. She tried to portray herself as a victim, manipulated by David, but the jury saw through her lies. In the end, both Sarah and David were convicted of first-degree murder. Sarah was sentenced to life in prison without parole, while David, as the actual murderer, received the death penalty. In the years that followed, the Parker family was left shattered. John's parents were devastated by the betrayal and loss of both their sons, one dead and the other a convicted murderer. The children, Emily and Jack, were placed in the custody of John's sister, who tried to shield them from the truth for as long as possible. The once perfect Parker family had been destroyed by lies, betrayal, and murder, a chilling reminder of how dangerous secrets can become. This tragic tale of love, betrayal, and murder continues to haunt the quiet streets of Greenwood, Ohio, where whispers of Sarah's affair and David's obsession linger, a ghost of a family torn apart by desire and deceit. Please do subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share with your friends and family members. Yours single like and subscribe is a big motivation for me to bring new video every day.